United States Marine Corps Aviation is the air component of the United States Marine Corps. Marine aviation has a very different mission and operation than its ground counterpart, and thus, has many of its own histories, traditions, terms, and procedures. All marine aviation falls under the influence of the Deputy Commandant for Aviation, whose job is to advise the Commandant of the Marine Corps in all matters relating to aviation, especially acquisition of new assets, conversions of current aircraft, maintenance, operation, and command. The Corps operates both rotary-wing and fixed-wing aircraft mainly to provide transport and close air support to its ground forces. However, other aircraft types are also used in a variety of support and special-purpose roles. Today, marine aviation is task-organized to support the Marine Air Ground Task Force, as the aviation combat element, by providing 6 functions: assault support, anti-air warfare, offensive air support, electronic warfare, control of aircraft and missiles, and aerial reconnaissance. History. Marine aviation officially began on the 22nd of May 1912, when First Lieutenant Alfred Austell Cunningham reported to Naval Aviation Camp in Annapolis, Maryland, for duty in connection with aviation. On the 20th of August of that year, he became the first Marine aviator, as he took off in a Burgess Model H given to him by the Burgess Company in Marblehead Harbor in Marblehead, Massachusetts. As the number of marine aviators grew, so did the desire to separate from naval aviation, a dream realized on 6 January 1914, when First Lieutenant Bernard L. Smith was directed to Culebra, Puerto Rico, to establish the Marine section of the Navy Flying School. The first official Marine flying unit arrived with the 17th of February 1917. Commissioning of the Marine Aviation Company for duty with the Advanced Base Force at the Philadelphia Navy Yard. World War I. The first major expansion of the Marine Corps air component came with America's entrance into World War I in 1917. Wartime expansion saw the Aviation Company split into the 1st Aeronautic Company, which deployed to the Azores to hunt U-boats in January 1918 in the 1st Marine Air Squadron, which deployed to France as the newly renamed 1st Marine Aviation Force in July 1918 and provided bomber and fighter support to the Navy's Day Wing, Northern Bombing Group. By the end of the war, several Marine aviators had recorded air-to-air kills. Collectively, they had dropped over 14 tons of bombs, and the number totals included 282 officers and 2,180 enlisted men operating from 8 squadrons. In 1919, the 1st Division, Squadron 1, was formed from these units, and exists as VMA 231. Interwar period. The end of World War I saw Congress authorize 1,020 men for marine aviation, and the establishment of permanent air stations at Quantico, Paris Island and San Diego. The United States also embraced its role of global power, and the Marine Corps became the preferred force for military intervention. Where the Marines went, so went marine aviation. During the Banana Wars, while fighting bandits and insurgents in places like Haiti, the Dominican Republic and Nicaragua, marine aviators began to experiment with air-ground tactics and making the support of their fellow Marines on the ground their primary mission. It was in Haiti that Marines began to develop the tactic of dive bombing, and in Nicaragua where they began to perfect it, while other nations and services had tried variations of this technique. Marine aviators were the first to embrace it and make it part of their tactical doctrine. And besides dive bombing, marine aviation in Nicaragua developed the skill of air resupply of outposts, dropping bundles from Fokker F-7 trimotors. Even prior to the events in the Caribbean, pioneering marine aviators such as Alfred Cunningham had noted in 1920 that the only excuse for aviation in any service is its usefulness in assisting the troops on the ground to successfully carry out their missions. It was not until the 3rd of May 1925 that the Marine Corps officially appeared in the Navy's aeronautical organization when Rear Admiral William A. Moffett, then chief of the Navy's Bureau of Aeronautics, issued a directive officially authorizing 3 fighting squadrons. Also taking place during the 1920s was that Marine squadrons began qualifying on board aircraft carriers. However, in terms of mission and training, the assignment of 2 Marine scouting squadrons as component units of the Pacific Fleet carriers would be one of the greatest advancements for Marine aviation. Prior to this, Marine squadrons were loosely controlled with regard to doctrine and training. This assignment enabled nearly 60% of active duty aviators at the time to be exposed to a disciplined training syllabus under a clearly defined mission. The turning point for the long-term survival of Marine Air came with the structural change of the establishment of the Fleet Marine Force in 1933. This shifted Marine doctrine to focus less on expeditionary duty and more on supporting amphibious warfare by seizing advanced naval bases in the event of war. This also saw the establishment of Aircraft 1 and Aircraft 2 to replace the old Aircraft Squadron, East Coast and Aircraft Squadron, West Coast that had supported operations in the Caribbean and China as part of their expeditionary duties. This organization would remain until June 1940 when Congress authorized the Marine Corps 1,167 aircraft as part of its 10,000 plane program for the Navy. Just prior, in 1939, the Navy's General Board published a new mission for marine aviation, which stated, "Marine aviation is to be equipped, organized and trained primarily for the support of the Fleet Marine Force in landing operations and in support of troop activities in the field, and, secondarily as replacement for carrier-based naval aircraft." On the 7th of December 1941, the day of the attack on Pearl Harbor, Marine aviation consisted of 13 flying squadrons and 230 aircraft. World War II would see the Marine Corps Air Arm expand rapidly and extensively. They would reach their peak number of units with 5 air wings, 31 aircraft groups and 145 flying squadrons. During the war, and for the next 50 years, the Guadalcanal campaign would become a defining point for marine aviation. The great takeaways were the debilitating effects of not having air superiority, the vulnerability of targets such as transport shipping, and the vital importance of quickly acquiring expeditionary airfields during amphibious operations. Because of the way the Pacific War unfolded, marine aviation was not able to achieve its 1939 mission of supporting the Fleet Marine Force at first. For the first 2 years of the war, the Air Arm spent most of its time protecting the fleet and land-based installations from attacks by enemy ships and aircraft. This began to change after the Battle of Tarawa, as the air support for ground troops flown by Navy pilots left much to be desired. After the battle, General Holland Smith recommended Marine aviators, thoroughly schooled in the principles of direct air support, should do the job. The New Georgia campaign saw the first real close air support provided to Marine ground forces by Marine Air. The Bougainville campaign and the campaign to retake the Philippines saw the establishment of air liaison parties to coordinate air support with the Marines fighting on the ground, and the Battle of Okinawa brought most of it together with the establishment of Aviation Command and Control in the form of landing force air support control units. During the course of the war, Marine aviators were credited with shooting down 2,355 Japanese aircraft while losing 573 of their own aircraft in combat. They had 120 aces and earned 11 medals of honor. Immediately following the war, the strength of the Marine Corps flying arm was drastically cut as part of the post-war drawdown of forces. Their active strength fell from 116,628 personnel and 103 squadrons on 31 August 1945 to 14,163 personnel and 21 squadrons on 30 June 1948. They also maintained another 30 squadrons in the Marine Air Reserve. Also during this time, the Secretary of Defense for then-President Harry S. Truman, Lewis A. Johnson, attempted to eliminate Marine Corps aviation by transferring its air assets to other services, and even proposed to progressively eliminate the Marine Corps altogether in a series of budget cutbacks and decommissioning of forces, jets and helicopters after World War II. Most propeller aircraft were gradually phased out as jet aircraft improved and helicopters were developed for use in amphibious operations. The first Marine Jet Squadron came in November 1947 when VMF 122 fielded the FH Phantom, and 4 years later VMF 311 would be the first Marine Jet Squadron to be used in combat, providing close air support for the Marines and soldiers on the ground in December 1950, flying the F-9F Panther. HMX-1, the first Marine Helicopter Squadron, stood up in November 1947. Marine helicopters, VM-06 flying the HO-3S-1 helicopter, made their combat debut in August 1950's Battle of Pusan Perimeter. January 1951 saw the activation of HMR-161, the world's first helicopter transport squadron. In February 1957, VMA-214 became the first Marine squadron to be certified for special weapons delivery, dropping nuclear weapons. Several other would receive certification, though eventually all nuclear weapons were turned over to Navy and Air Force responsibility. The Korean and Vietnam Wars saw the size of marine aviation rebound from its post-World War II lows, emerging as the force that exists today, consisting of 4 air wings, 20 aircraft groups and 78 flying squadrons. By the end of the Vietnam War, the Marine Air Ground Task Force had grown dependent on its multi-mission inventory of fixed and rotary wing aircraft, which could operate from land or sea bases to support Marines on the ground. Marine aviators deployed to the Middle East for Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm, then to Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and Operation Iraqi Freedom. 2006 saw marine aviation at its highest operational level since the Vietnam War, flying more than 120,000 combat hours into support operations in and near Afghanistan and Iraq. Despite their aging aircraft and high operating tempo, marine aviation maintained a 74.5-PERCENT mission-capable rate, higher than the 62% of the USAF's F-22 Raptor. As of 2010, the aircraft fleet is undergoing another transformation. As of 2015, 19% of the fleet is inoperable, most of them CH-53s. The leader of marine aviation views this as too high, but expects to restore 30 to 40 aircraft per year. Future. Since the Corps as a whole began to grow in 2007, marine aviation expanded with it, and continues to grow. Several new squadrons have been activated, with HMLA 567, VMF-AT 501, and VMU-4 pending. Some support units will gain personnel and equipment. The Corps intends to buy 340 F-35Bs to replace all F/A-18 Hornets, AV-8B, Harrier IIs and EA-6B Prowlers in the fighter, attack, and electronic warfare roles. The MV-22B Osprey is replacing the CH-46C Knight and the remaining CH-53DC Stallion. The Corps has transitioned all East Coast CH-46 squadrons to the MV-22, which has made its first combat deployments and Marine Expeditionary Unit deployments. Remaining CH-53S will eventually be replaced by the CH-53K model. The KC-130J Super Hercules will replace all other C-130 models. As part of the H-1 upgrade program, UH-1N Twin Hueys will be replaced or converted to UH-1Y Venoms, while AH-1W Super Cobras will upgrade to AH-1Z Vipers. The VH-3D Kings and the VH-60N Blackhawks of HMX-1 were to be replaced by the VH-71 Kestrel in the VXX program. But the future of the program is in doubt with budget cuts by Secretary of Defense Robert Gates. Unmanned aerial vehicle programs will be upgraded in tiers, with the RQ-7 Shadow currently replacing the RQ-2 Pioneer and the RQ-11 Raven replacement planned. They have also been in the lead in looking at unmanned helicopters to resupply troops at remote forward operating bases in places such as Afghanistan.